Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this question and answer session with Shannon about the new film, My Year of Living Mindfully. And so we have the host, Shannon Harvey, that 6 years after producing the first film has come up with a sequel. I'm very pleased to have you with us here in the south of Portugal, where I'm based. And we have representatives from the whole of Portugal with us here, wanting to ask you questions about your experience of doing this film and how it has been during the 6 years since you did your first film. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and thank you for being so kind as to host the Portugal premiere of My Year of Living Mindfully.
Thank you. So let me introduce the rest of the people that we have on the call here. So maybe after I say your name, you want to say something about yourself, just a few little words about where you are and what you're doing. So we have start with Marion.
Hello, hi Shannon, my name is Marion Furr. I'm a mindfulness teacher and trainer for Oxford University in the UK, but I teach and train here in Portugal. I'm also a PhD student at Algarve University doing my research on mindfulness, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you today.
Thank you, Marion. And then we have Marta.
Good morning to everyone. So my name is Marta. I live nearby Pierre and Marion in Portugal, Lolé. I'm an MBSR teacher. I'm a psychologist. I believe mindfulness was the most transformative thing that happened in my life. So that's why I became an MBSR teacher. And I'm really glad that I have this opportunity to be here with you all this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Marta. Thank you. And then we have Christina.
Good morning. I live in Figueira da Foz, in the center of Portugal, by the sea. I'm a psychologist. I'm so glad to be here with you because I organized the screening of the connection for 3 times in my town, and with the Order of Psychologists I'm in different places, and the last one was in a school project for parents and for the family and for the old city of Penacova, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. And then we have Antonio. We have to unmute you as well, Antonio.
Not you to this
Now
meeting.
we're good.
Hello, Shannon. Hello, Hall. I'm a mindfulness teacher here in Lisbon, in different areas, schools, companies, and everybody who needs mindfulness. And actually, it's my life, mindfulness, 100%. So nice to be here, and hope this video get to a lot of people.
Thank you, Antonio. Thank you. And then we have Helen.
Hi, I'm Helen Maffini. I'm a Canadian living in the Algarve. I'm the founder of MindBee Education. So I work with schools bringing mindfulness and social emotional learning to young children. And I'm also a doctoral student looking at how mindfulness affects preschoolers. So I'm really happy to be here, and thanks so much for inviting me, and congratulations again on the film, Shannon.
Thank you very much, Helen. And then we have Eduardo.
Hello, good morning, everybody. My name is Eduardo. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I've been through a mindfulness process with Mariam, and I do some things with Marta also. But I'm essentially looking at mindfulness from a point of view of a clinical psychologist, and to counsel it or to advise people to go through the processes. And I'm very curious, and I love the film, and I'm really happy for the opportunity to be here talking with all of you, and especially you, Shannon. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Eduardo. And last but not least, I'm Per Norgren. I'm Swedish. I'm living in the Algarve, married to Marian. And I'm a teacher, mindfulness teacher, been teaching for a number of years. And I also teach and help out to the Oxford Mindfulness Centre in the UK and also Bangor University. I'm helping them as well. So, welcome everybody. It has been 6 years since your first film, The Connection, and it was very well received. I remember how I was so interested in that message, and I really took that film on board. So can you say something a little bit about how it's been since you did that film?
Yeah, so we are, my husband and I, Jules, who's kind of in the film that you've just seen, but sort of in the edges of that film, we released The Connection 6 years ago, and we're independent filmmakers. And what really blew us away about that film was the response. And it wasn't just like a fringe response, it was a really mainstream response. So it was like a message that I feel that medicine was really ready to take on. So one of the extraordinary things that happened was that there were 300 screenings that took place, community-driven screenings, and most of those screenings took place within mainstream healthcare settings. The film is now recommended viewing to medical students at universities all around the world, including Monash and Harvard and Tufts Medical School, University of Leicester. So that was really incredible. And Jules and I realized that people are really hungry for information that they can trust, for content that they can use to promote their own excellent work. And the problem with that was that you can know a lot about the connection between our mind, body, and health, like I did after I made that film, but knowing and doing are two totally different things. So after the birth of my second son, baby Isaac, I realized that it had been 14 months since I had even attempted to sit down to meditate. And so I knew it was something I should be doing, but I just didn't have the willpower to do.
Wow.
And in some ways, I think that my year of living mindfully was just a really elaborate experiment to see what would happen if I actually stuck to it, and to see, and this is going to sound really terrible to a whole group of extraordinary mindfulness teachers, but I really wanted to know if meditating was worth it.
Yeah. But that is so wonderful, and I think we all can relate to that in our own journey of mindfulness, because certainly for me, I haven't been, rigorously every day an hour on the cushion. And I see nodding heads here. Are we all going to own up to this, that we maybe not all of us meditate every day? But yeah, so we all have our own practice, and it is difficult. And I think that is the number one topic that comes up when we are teaching mindfulness. And actually, how do we make it stick? It's all very lovely when we are doing the course and people are motivated and it feels great. And then, I don't know, anybody wants to say something about that and add something to that from the rest? You want to, I don't know, Helen, do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I think it's, for me, it's always something that, you have to keep in mind and develop it into a habit. And that's helped me a lot, even if it's just a few minutes. And also being kind to yourself. I think if you do miss a day or a week or anything. So yeah, that's. But I think that's something everybody goes through when we're learning is keeping that habit and that daily practice. But I think once you start seeing the benefits, then it gets easier to to know that you should do it, because I know for myself, if I miss a couple of days, I really notice it in my actions and my personality.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thank you, Helen. And Mari, you want to say something?
Yeah, what you say is really interesting, Shannon. One of the things I'm very curious about in my research about mindfulness is that many of us do this 8-week program. And of course, this 8-week program includes a whole range of things, from sitting or body scan, from paying attention in everyday life to listening meditation. And the program is always delivered as a package of mindful activities and meditation activities. In your year of living mindfully, in your big experiment, what was there any one practice that you felt most drawn to, that was most helpful for you?
Do you mean in terms of technique, meditation technique, or
what worked for you? Yeah. What did you notice that worked best for you in your year of living mindfully?
If I was to try to sum it up, I would say it was the training. It was the sitting down and intentionally training every single day and sticking to the practice. And what was really interesting is that because I started by using an app, and I was meditating for 20 minutes a day. But when I joined my MBSR course, it was like my experience was turbocharged in my daily life. It was as clear for me to observe as though, I'd been going for a walk around my block for fitness, and then I started training at the gym. I actually noticed a real difference in my day-to-day awareness and my mental experience. And I think there are a number of reasons for that. I think MBSR, if you really commit to MBSR, you're asked to commit to 45 minutes a day. And I think that there's something to that commitment. But I also think that having guidance from a real teacher, somebody who could answer my questions and help me fine tune the problems that I may have been struggling with, that really turbocharged my practice. I think the other really extraordinary thing was being part of a group. There's something really different about meditating with others than meditating just every day by yourself. So that was really, really interesting. But I really, just coming back to where I started with this, it was intentionally training and sticking with the training. That's when I really started.
Thank you, Shannon. I think there's something Marion always says in her courses about, you don't necessarily have to enjoy it, you don't have to like it, but as long as you do it, something will happen. You always do the gym analogy, don't you, Marion?
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. Anybody else want to say something? Christina, Antonio, Edouard, Marta, about that? Okay, we can move on a little bit. So the next thing I wanted to explore with you a little bit, that you're looking incredibly well, Shannon. You're looking wonderfully well. I don't know if it is the wonderful Australian sunshine you've had or what it is, but because when you did the first film, you were not feeling very well. And then, so what's happened? Well, these 6 years.
Well, a complete lifestyle transformation. When I started shooting The Connection, I really wasn't doing very well, especially with the chronic pain that's associated with my illness. But that was the beginning of that filming process. And as I began interviewing the experts in that film, I started realizing that there really was something in this. And I started actually, making small changes in my life. And I started feeling better, which is partly why the film, became something that I was so dedicated to producing and releasing. I felt that it was the film that I really wanted. I wish that film was available when I first fell ill, and that somebody had have handed it to me, because I think I would have saved myself a lot of a lot of pain and difficulty if I had have known
Yeah.
what I now know. Yeah.
Yeah. But then you wouldn't have met all these wonderful people you've met in the film.
So that's right. And I wasn't even a health journalist when I really started this. I was a news and current affairs journalist, interested in becoming a foreign correspondent. So I think if not for my illness, I certainly would not be making these kind of films now.
No, that's right. And often, I think most of us, we speak from that experience as well, that you come to mindfulness through your own personal experience. Something happens in your life, and it's amazing how transformational it can be. And anybody wants to say something about their journey and how transformational it's been in relation to what Shannon has been saying? Want to add something to that?
If I may?
Christina? Yes,
Yes.
of course. Yeah.
For me, my first experience with mindfulness, it was in a postdoc course, and I never heard about it, but I realized that it was so me. It was so inspiring and so natural. And then I also changed my life. I used to work in schools, but I realized I don't have enough time to work the way I would like. So I leave schools, and I still work with schools, but in a different way. And I think it's life changing. And the beautiful of mindfulness is that everything is okay. It's okay not to practice today. I don't need to be hard on me because I didn't practice. And it's about kindness and for with others, and it's the awareness and the changing. And Shannon, you are doing a wonderful work, and your work is make our work very easy, because it's very easy to invite someone. In Figueira we have 200 people in a full cinema with people that never heard about mindfulness, and it's inspiring, and it's easy to go to a movie. It's more difficult to invite people to do a MBSR. I have more difficult to invite people to do the training, but it's very easy to invite people to go to the movie. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Christina. So anything you want to say about that, Shannon? That is the common feedback that you've had about the use of the film.
I thank you for saying that, Christina, because it's something that I realized when we released The Connection, is that I have this ability to produce content that can actually be used by people like you as a resource. And that that just makes me so happy to hear that it's a valuable resource. And I hope going forward, my husband and I both hope to continue making material like this that is useful for people who are doing the really good work on the front line. And really, our hope is that we can spark meaningful conversations and hopefully inspire change. And if we can kind of get people through the door and interested in evidence-based solutions for their health, then you guys can then show them how to take it forth into their lives. So thank you for saying that. It really it makes me feel so good.
Thank you. It is wonderful. It is really, really good. And looking then at how to take this then forward. So we share these wonderful things. We got the film, and we can show people. But how do you make it stick? What is it that is going to be the motivator at the end of that? So
What do
anything?
you tell your students?
Well, it's a different here, I think, when you are teaching. But not only do you have to be the mindfulness expert, but you're also a student yourself. Because when you're teaching, you're only sharing of your own experience, and the student, they see in you mindfulness. And that's, the biggest gift you can give to people, is that they can experience mindfulness through you. But to be able to convey this thing but it is wonderful. You just got to do it. What is that secret thing? Because we have to be a coach, we have to be like a marketeer, we have to be a motivator, we have to be everything on top of us being mindfulness. So anything you've heard people talk about this thing about keeping people motivated and going?
Look, this is truthfully, I think this may very well be the subject of our next film.
Lovely.
How do we make healthy changes last? Right? This is
what's
really interesting about this is that I have looked at the science side of this. What do we know about human behavior, about how we make changes and make those changes last? And what's so interesting, despite the titles of certain best-selling books, we actually know surprisingly little about what the secrets are to lasting behavior change. In fact, one academic paper that I recently read looked at I think there's exactly or just over 100 behavior change theories that are being empirically tested and tried. And the conclusion of that, when sort of they looked at all of it, is that basically we don't know.
Okay.
Having said that, I don't want to, for people who are listening to this, I don't want to sound uninspiring and that it's all hopeless, because my favorite behavior change technique that really worked for me during my year of living mindfully comes from an academic named Peter Gollwitzer from New York University, and it's called if-then planning. And it's a really simple technique, and it applies across everybody's lives, no matter what their circumstances are. In my circumstance, it goes like this. If it's 6 a.m., then I will meditate. And I've actually got a sneaky extra trick, which is that my alarm clock is my favorite meditation teacher's audio. And so he wakes me up every morning and he says, now, mindfulness is a very important thing that you should be doing every single day. And that's the first thought that goes into my head every single day. Now, but the thing about if-then planning is that Peter Gollwitzer encourages you to plan for the things that are going to get in the way. So, for example, this morning, my 3-year-old son came in at 6:05 for a cuddle. And no matter what I did, there was no way I was going to be able to continue my practice because of, it's you have a small child poking you in the eye. So my if-then planning then goes, if I don't meditate at 6 a.m., then I will meditate on my lunch break at work. If I don't get a chance to meditate on my lunch break, then, and it continues and continues, even, for example, on the weekend, if it's the weekend and I'm not at work, then I will meditate when my 3-year-old son has his nap. And so it continues all the way through to, if I've gone all the way through to the end of the day and I still haven't meditated, then I will meditate before I go to sleep. And for me, I'm not one of these people who has a regular, very strict regime. If I was to say that, I only ever meditate first thing in the morning, I guarantee you I would fail. In fact, I actually only meditate probably 2, maybe 3 mornings a week, and quite regularly go all the way through to the end of the day before I actually practice. So I think it's horses for courses, really. That technique was very useful for me. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. If-then planning. I've never heard of that, but it sounds really good. I shall look it up and see. And the second thing you said, that was really good. To have your favorite teacher wake you up in the morning and saying, "Oi, get on the cushion. This is good for you."
That'd be maybe that in your head, so it works really well. Yeah.
But I remember from last night, I was teaching a program called Finding Peace in a Frantic World. And we did the home practice review. And I'm teaching online now, of course. We can't do group. So I sent them off into breakout rooms, and they came back. And we did a review about, okay, so how was it? And there was a review of the meditation we'd just done in the class. And they came back, and one group sheepishly said, "Well, we just love your voice." So they completely lost, what the meditation was about. So we just love listening to your voice. And they've been sitting talking about how lovely my voice was. So maybe as a meditation teacher, we should give out their morning alarm bell. That is actually a little 20-second thing.
What
Good
a great
morning.
idea. Yeah. Yeah.
Time to get out of bed and go for meditation. So maybe that could be motivating as well. Yeah. So if the students like your voice. So thank you so much for sharing. Anybody wants to say something about actually how it was for them and how they find themselves motivated? Because I find this subject is so important. Antonio, yeah.
I get a word that Shannon says, changing behavior. And we have a lot of sports, a lot of techniques to change our behavior. I think everybody that listens to this video, this movie, knows that they need to change something in their life. And the beauty of mindfulness is we don't need to choose anything. We don't need to choose a technique A, B, C, or D. We just sit and wait for the changes come inside of us. Then we go out and changes starting to appear. But we need to find the reason to meditate, because it's really a choice that we have. My life, everybody has choices in their life. I came to mindfulness because I was working in a bank. Normal, I was happy, I'm not in pain. But is this life only like this? Working, waking up, working, going home, like a cycle. And one day I have a little pain in my stomach, some disease. And in the next month I will go to Vipassana and stay 10 days in a silence retreat. That was my choice. But I think the choice that everybody need to look inside is, are we just this that we see? And this human body, this walking legs and arms and head. If you are okay with that, perfect. Only that. But if you want to look a little further, what is humanity? Why do I choose bad things to me when I have the good one in the bed and I go to the bed? Then it's good to sit down and just look what is happening.
Yeah.
Mindfulness.
Thank you, Antonio. Does that relate anything to your journey about the good and the bad, Shannon? That you had choices to make?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing to add to this though is that I haven't become a superhuman. Is that
No, you're not?
No, disappointing. I haven't, I still eat too much chocolate. And I haven't developed these kind of, powers to overcome my habits. But I think that mindfulness certainly gives me a tool with which to kind of start to work out how to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you feel, sorry, Marek, that one more thing on that. Do you feel that the lifestyle changes that you have done, and although as you say, you're not perfect, and are you now managing your illness through your lifestyle changing?
Yeah, I'm completely pain-free as I sit here. My doctor at the end of my year of living mindfully said to me, although there's still markers here in your blood that indicate that you have an illness, I would say that your illness is not active. It is not progressing. It's not something that we should be worried about. And I really 100% know that it's because of the way I look after myself. Yeah. Yeah.
So you're living there with something in the background that if you stray away from looking after yourself, it may well flare up again.
Definitely. Yeah.
Now that's a good motivator.
Yeah.
A very good motivator to have. Yeah. So thank you for that. Marion, you wanted to say something.
Yes, I wanted to ask Shannon if your mindfulness practice meant that when you ate all that chocolate, you really, really appreciated it.
I'm actually, my honest answer to that is that I'm really working on the self-compassion side of things. And you guys, I'm sure, will be far more eloquent than I am about self-compassion, which I think it's an add to mindfulness practice. But right now, honestly, around eating too much chocolate, I'm practicing mindfulness around my own response and the beating myself up that I do when I eat too much chocolate. Or even, it's not just chocolate. It's like I'll have a day in front of my computer where I don't get up and move my body in the way that I should, and I have an automatic habit loop, mental habit loop that goes, "You're an idiot. You know better than this. Why haven't you got up and moved your body? This is not good. You should know better. You're a health journalist." And so this is something that I'm working with my mindfulness practice. Yeah. You guys, I'm sure you guys would be so much better to talk about that self-compassion component in mindfulness practice. I'm sure listeners would like to. I'm such a beginner.
No, I think we all are beginners when it comes to that. Yeah, sorry, Eduardo, you want to say something?
Shannon, after 1 year and seeing all the gains that you had in terms of your health, you still needed some strategies to sustain the practice. It didn't come naturally, the continuation of the practice. You still have to make an intentional effort to sustain the daily practice.
Good question. I certainly no longer have a team of scientists who are kind of forcing me to meditate every day. Just before this call started, I looked at my calendar, and today is 990 of my year of living mindfully. So I have been able to maintain my practice. And it's because I think somebody said earlier, I can't remember, one of you guys said earlier about how you just know that you feel better when you practice. And that because I've documented it so systematically, I just know that when I'm practicing, I'm a different person. It's like night and day. It's so clear to me. And so the motivation now is certainly coming from within, rather than from without. Yeah, you're right.
Thank you. That is lovely. So it's like you get the feeling, I always keep saying this, that you're moving from doing to being. And once you can start being mindful, it comes natural, and then it's lovely. And it's not an effort anymore. And that's beautiful. And we got some questions here. There's the first question about your children, and how did they relate to your change in personality that happened through your mindfulness, becoming mindful? And did you notice any relationship in your relationship with your children? And have you included them in your mindfulness training and taught them mindfulness skills?
Of course, absolutely. They have said to me that I'm different, particularly my oldest son, who's just turned 7. He remembers, what it was like 990 days ago. And it's interesting how my parenting is affected by the practice. You might remember in the film, I came to a kind of a realization after doing MBSR that I was learning how to turn towards things in my life that were unpleasant. And the word that I used is discomfortable. I was comfortable despite my discomfort. And that is something that I'm really carrying through to my parenting. So when my 7-year-old son had his birthday recently, my 3-year-old son had a really difficult time not getting presents. And my instinct was to kind of soothe him or give him something, to make him feel better. But actually I just sat with him and allowed him to feel uncomfortable and like, but in a really safe space, just like, yeah, it is really disappointing that you're not getting presents right now. Isn't it really disappointing? And then allowed him to kind of transition into a giving space. So it was actually his turn to give his brother a present. And we had this discussion about how good it felt to give his brother a present. And that's just mindfulness at work there, that instinct. And my 3-year-old son actually, he said to me this morning, this is a week later, gee, it feels good when you give something to somebody, Mum, doesn't it? And it was like,
oh,
wow.
oh, melting heart.
Yeah, it was really amazing. Like it landed.
Yes, it landed.
And you're doing work with kids, aren't you? And I'd love to know what your take is on this.
Yeah, I love that story, and I think that it's so important that we're not fixing people or trying to fix things. So I love what you did. But yeah, I work a lot with teachers who work with young children, and it's so beautiful to see the compassion and empathy and kindness that develops. I think it's there naturally, but you can bring out just by holding that space and providing opportunities for young children to learn about giving and helping others and sharing and things. So I think I'm really passionate about bringing this into schools. I think if we can teach young children to notice things, to be aware, and to develop those kind of kindness and empathetic skills, that we can change, the world a lot by giving them those things that they can take with them through life. So yeah, I'm a big advocate for bringing it into preschools and kindergartens and primary schools.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you for that. And that actually brings in the part of the next question is about having felt that, Shannon, that wonderful landing of mindfulness with your 3-year-old. Does that open your eyes to how can we teach young children this? Is it through the acts of the parents, or what is it? Is it a cognitive skill we can give them, or what is it?
Oh, look, that's where I hope the researchers will start really coming to the fore. I know Willem Kuyken at Oxford Mindfulness Centre has just launched this extraordinary project to see whether mindfulness training in teen years can actually have an impact later in life and potentially prevent depression. That would be really fascinating to know. But I hope, I think we've got a lot more work to do in terms of knowing how to teach mindfulness, what techniques work. I think that's where people like Helen and others who are doing work with kids is really important, because they're at the front line and they can see what's working, but that needs to get disseminated out to people like me who, like, let's be honest, I'm just a total amateur here, so I don't really know anything about mindfulness training for kids. But I really hope that what we see is more programs coming online and that it gets taught to the parents so that then we can pass it on.
Yeah. And maybe it should be part of, you get the driving license before you have your child, and actually making sure you learn how to be when the child is born. So it should be before the child is born, maybe even. So you can get that behavior manifested inside yourself. So yeah, maybe part of the 9 months process. Yeah. So thank you for that, and extending that into the rest of the family. And your husband then, has he been kid number 3 in the family, or has he been, how is it working with him and mindfulness?
You guys probably know people who are innately mindful, who are kind of born with the skill kind of embedded, and Jules is that person. He's also a mountaineer, and he has had incredible experiences, for example, being stranded in Antarctica for 6 weeks in a tent, with no stimulus whatsoever, which I think those of us who have been on silent retreats have some kind of familiarity with what that would be like. So I think he is a very unique person in that he hasn't had to do the formal mindfulness training in the same way that I have. He also doesn't struggle with his default mode as much as I do. You know, the ruminative thinking and the thinking. He's never had insomnia or anything like that, but he just seems to intuitively know. For example, he'll spend time in solitude, you know, free from any sort of stimulus. We live quite close to the beach, and he'll just take himself off to be mindful. He probably before this project wouldn't have called it mindfulness, but he just, I guess, knew. And of course he edited the film, so he's sat through hundreds and hundreds of hours of it, so he sure knows a lot about it now.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, that is lovely to hear. So have you in your way then been influenced a little bit by him, by his being, that the mirror neurons kicking in here, and you kind of sense it in yourself as well?
Jules is the best thing that ever happened to me. Fundamentally changed the trajectory of my life. And the second best thing was going on a silent retreat.
Oh, that is lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. So then one question I wanted to know. In the two films, you have met some amazing people. These are the people we only see on film or read their books, you know. And it's like, which one of them was it that you found, now this is the guy or the girl?
Gosh, they're all special, all of them. And they've all had enormous impacts on my life.
Yeah, you want to say something about that?
So, well, every single one of them has changed my life. But I think at the moment, the one who I think is going to really have an impact on the world is Bernstein, who is featured in my Year of Living Mindfully. He's the Israeli researcher who's doing work with refugees. He's about to launch a scientific project called Moments of Refuge. And the idea is to test his 9-week mindfulness program with refugees who have experienced trauma in all kinds of different settings. So, you know, in camps, in urban settings, in, you know, new country resettlement programs. And there is hardly any research about going on for mental health for refugees. There's virtually nothing at all. And Amit's program, you know, I really came to the conclusion after my Year of Living Mindfully that that's where my hope is, because when I was in the Middle East, it was very easy to feel that the situation is hopeless. You know, I really understand that places like the UNHCR and other NGOs are doing great work supporting the physical needs of displaced people. But the mental health needs of refugees is virtually neglected. And I really do think that mindfulness has a lot of potential there, you know, at a time when the ratio in over 50% of countries in the world, the ratio of psychiatrists to population is 1 to 100,000. So it's absurd to think that we're going to be able to give one-on-one counseling to all these traumatized people. And that's where I think mindfulness has a lot of potential. So to answer your question, currently, I think Bernstein has the potential to change the world.
Yeah. And I think that is a beautiful note maybe to end on this conversation, that actually that if you look at individual people and the wonderful work they do and the impact it can have on the world, and you bring that back down to the small classes that we teach, that we impact maybe 10 people, maybe 15 people. And as soon as you have done a little bit of mindfulness, you have changed. Whether you like it or not, whether you know it, once you have started mindfulness, you do change. And if we can bring it out more, that even if you are like I am, a normal person teaching normal people, but if enough of us do it, we can make a change. So there is hope, I think. I think there is great hope.
Definitely. Thank you to all of you for for being mindfulness teachers. Like as a mindfulness student, I just want to express that gratitude for the excellent work that you're all doing. It's so enormously valuable. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
And of course, it's becoming more and more popular and more available. And what we have seen, particularly at Oxford, when Marion and I are helping and teaching, is that all the programs have moved online now. And we've been working hard in the last couple of months and making sure that we're still delivering training to people via Zoom online. And what a reach, what a difference it's made, the reach we're now able to do. So maybe there was a need for this virus, a horrible thing to say, but maybe the good that can come out of the bad, that's the terrible thing that's happened with this virus, is that actually we can take a lesson from this and learn that actually if we open and use all kinds of channels and means of that we have, we can actually reach more people and allow more people to feel the benefit of it. And I think that is so valuable. And particularly in situations where, as you say, there is a very small ratio between a teacher or a psychiatrist, and we can reach lots of people through mindfulness. So thank you so much. Anybody want to say a final word to Shannon?
Yes, I want to say, Shannon, thank you, because I think your new film will also, for the first time, open doors for people. It will help to bring people into the fold, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with as many people as possible, because as you said, the everydayness of your experience will inspire some people, I hope, to take it further. And that's why I'm looking forward to showing your film. So thank you for making it.
Thank you, Mari. Thank you. Edouard, you also wanted to say something.
Shannon, first of all, I would like to thank you for making the movie. I think it's really important document and it will help many people. Thank you for doing it from a skeptical point of view. Because, you know, when enthusiasts do a movie like that, or they express their position, usually it's not as credible as the way you did it. And I think your skeptical point of view was very important to make the point for mindfulness. For me, it was really important. And at the same time, I'd like to say that I came into psychology when I was 37 years old. That's when I started to study psychology and took my master's. But I was really surprised by the amount of knowledge and science and potential we have in terms of knowledge. And we have this huge difficulty in passing it on to the people outside. And I think it's very important that people like you who know how to communicate help the rest of the people to get to know what has been done in a responsible and scientific way, because there is a lot of knowledge that is coming out, and that is and you know the kind of guru attitude that a lot of people is taking, and they are taking advantage of loose knowledge and a lot of placebo effect, and they are doing a lot of things. And it's very important right now for someone to be the champion for the knowledge in science and psychology, because there is so much power in what we can already do, and people are not taking advantage of that. And it's really frustrating for us professionals to see that. So it's great when we see something like your movie. And once again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Edouard. And anybody else want to say a final word to Shannon? Yes, Marta.
So I also want to express my gratitude, because your film in some way is a personal testimony. I believe it will be very helpful for people. I also started with a skeptical, my personal mindfulness journey, and so it was really interesting in seeing other doing their path from that point, and in being a personal journey, I believe sometimes science is really important, of course, and I that was the main factor that I tried mindfulness for myself, because it was scientifically proven that it would give me some benefits. But I also think that your film can bring this personal and experiential and that's, I believe it's really important, because it's a bit difficult for me to be speaking in English as I translate from Portuguese to English. So let me just stop a little bit. So as you were saying a bit earlier about what worked for you as you managed to keep your practice, I believe it's really important to bring that touch of trying and discovering what works for us. And I believe your film is a great add to the earlier film Connection, because it brings more of that personal journey to it. So I really want to thank you for doing it. And Eduardo said it, it's great to have people that can communicate this from a perspective that is not so, I want to defend this, so I'm going to, and you did it really well in the film, so I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Marta. Thank you, thank you. Did Christina or Helen want to say something before we finish off?
I'll just quickly say thank you again, Shannon. I think as everyone has said, it's going to draw a lot of people in and get them curious and interested, and I can't wait to share it with the teachers and parents that I'm working with. I think it's going to encourage so many people to kind of try it out for themselves and or just be more aware of what's happening and the scientific basis behind the practices. So thanks again for creating this great resource.
Thank you, Helen. And Christina?
Yes, I would love to share with you, Shannon, the project we are, the research in the University of Coimbra in the Faculty of Psychology in a social emotional program for schools and for the community, and I think we can share, and it's doing great, and I'd love to share with you the things we are doing and some of the results we already have.
Oh, please tell me. Perhaps you could send me an email. I'd really like to.
Yes, I will.
Yeah.
Thank you, Christina. And a great big heartfelt thank you from me. It's been lovely to talk to you. And I think what's really struck me is your humanity. You're very humble in the way you are, and actually embracing mindfulness from a being mode, not from a doing mode. And that I think is lovely. And I think that comes across so well on the film as well. And particularly having the opportunity to have this conversation. And I think this is going to be a great motivator as well for people to actually hear you talk, not on the film, but actually talk to us and about your experience. And it's really heartwarming. So I think that'd be a great way of promoting the film as well. So thank you so much. Thank you for all your lovely work.
Thank you,
and
guys.
I wish you so well.
Thank you.
Thank you.